Hey everybody, for those who don't know, that my name is Michael Fart, and it's go time. Now, before we get going, I'm going to ask if everybody can stay off the stage here. This way, nobody blocks the display here, and it's sort of everyone can get a good view, and gives me a little room to do the whole presenting thing. If I can direct your attention to the menu wheel in your lower left, you're going to notice at the very top of that is a microphone icon. When that microphone icon is clear, that means we can hear what's happening in your environment. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to red. Okay, I see it's already been done. Thank you, Jessica. So yeah, when it's red, that means I'm not going to hear what's happening in your environment. So, if somebody comes into your space and says, hey, are you still on that thing? Feel free to answer them, because we're not going to hear any of that. You won't face social ruin back at the campfire, or become known as the avatar that started barking during its go time, or maybe your avatar starts ringing if your cell phone's ringing. So we don't have to worry about any of that. But just because you're muted doesn't mean you can't express yourself. You're going to notice that you have this pink cheek smiley face in your menu wheel. You should use that to open up your emoji panel. And once that's open, you have a wide variety. I see a lot of you already have a handle on this. You have a wide variety of options to express yourself. So if I say something deep and meaningful and you feel it right here, it starts building up, you can just let it out. Just let it flow. It's a good thing. Maybe I got some backup dancers backstage. They come out behind me, they go break in the Go Time the musical, and you're very impressed. You can throw up applause on the live for it. Take a minute to drink that in right there. Very cool. If I ask you a yes or no question, you can say yes like this. You can say no like that. The person is saying no an awful lot. Hopefully things improve. Let's see, you can also go like this to make, indicate that you're laughing. You can go like this to get my attention, but if I see only one of these go up, I'm going to keep on going. If I see like 5 of them go up in a row, then I know there's a problem, like maybe my voice, you can't hear it too good, or maybe the display's burst into flames. That actually happened one time because my mods have a good sense of humor. So yeah, we can do that. This is not how you ask questions. We will be taking questions and comments at the end of the presentation, so hang on to them if you do have any. You can press the X to close this emoji panel, but it's a good idea to keep it open because we feedback. It lets me know how I'm doing, but more importantly, lets people around you know what you're experiencing. So if the person next to you goes like, this, that means that they think something funny is happening, and you may not agree. And you might be like, oh, I don't think that's funny at all. I'm going to go stand over here. And you can totally do that because, hey, this is VR, right? Okay, now, Go Time is an event for Oculus Go users. And, if you're on a Go, you're in the right place. Okay, so, we're going to be covering a lot of different things in terms of ways to improve your performance in Altspace, because there can be some challenges being in Altspace on an Oculus Go. And speaking of challenges, I've been in bed for about the past, going on about a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, due to a medical condition, right? So when my Go came, I was super excited. You guys remember that feeling when you first put the headset on and you feel like you're transported to another place? You guys remember what that feels like? Well, when I experienced that, I'd been reading about Altspace for a while. My first thing I wanted to try. And so I came into Altspace and I looked up. And when I looked up into the sky, and that sky looked a lot like what I remember a sky looking like. And I was very grateful for this. I was so grateful I started volunteering right away. But when I started volunteering, I found that my battery pack, my battery on my Go wouldn't last an entire event. So I'd have to charge up, I'd have to track down the event host, and I'd have to explain why I disappeared. Right? So that wasn't working. So I started asking, around, like, how can I improve my experience? What can I do? What changes can I make, to the device to, really make things work? And I was told some stuff. I was told that I wouldn't be able to work this laser pointer here. And that turned out to not be true. I was able to do that on a Go. I was also told, let me put that over here for now. I was also told that I wouldn't be able to work these slides here. And that turned out to not be true. I was also told that despite having a background presenting material like this, that, I wouldn't be able to do it because my device wasn't reliable enough. And that turned out to not be true. And all these things, told me that there was a huge disconnect between the perception of mobile users, what people thought it was like to be on an Oculus Go, versus the reality of what it actually was like. Somebody's pointing back there? You pointing over here? What are you pointing at? Oh, okay. Oh, nothing? Okay, cool. Looked like you were trying to get my attention. You kept going like this. It's like, going over there. Look out behind you, And yeah, we were going to have to ask you to stay off the stage, Lacey, if you don't mind, please. All right, thank you. All right, so yeah, so there was a huge disconnect between the perception of mobile users and versus the reality of that experience. And, so yeah, let me see here. Here we go. A little behind there. Okay. And, that's not to say that there aren't problems being on an Oculus Go. There are. And many of these are actually solvable, and the ones that aren't can at least be managed. And there's two approaches you can take. You can work with the device you already have on your head, right? Or you can upgrade your experience to exceed the limitations of your device. And those of you that have been here before know I can't stand this term, because listen, if you hear this term like every day in Altspace, like I did when I first came in, if you're like, for instance, if somebody says every day they hate your shirt, right? You're going to start thinking it's not your shirt they don't like, right? It's easy to make that there. And so what happens is, you have to remember that you are not your device any more than you are your house or your car. All right, your device is only the vehicle that brings you into Altspace. Because there's another word that gets tossed around Altspace a lot, and that's community. You, the individual, make up the community, not what device you're using. The Go is, a really great introduction to VR. It's a really great way to get used to it. It's a great way to get your VR legs, not having to worry about the vertical up and down motion of it. It's a great way to get a handle on it. Keeps that dizziness in check, and I think a really great introductory experience. I feel about the Go the way a lot of people feel about their cars, about their first car. What's up, KKJ? Told you we'll be taking questions and comments at the end, okay? So hang on to that if you have a question. All right, so now what can you do to improve your experience right now? All right, well, there's a few ways you can go. And you may not realize this, our devices, they lose power even when they're not in use. So what can happen is, like, let's say at nighttime you put the device down on the table, right? By morning, it's gonna have less power than it did, when you set it down. And the reason for this is because it's always checking for updates to the firmware, updates for the apps. Maybe it has a secret, pen pal on the other side of the world. Maybe it has a whole secret life you don't know anything about, right? You've seen a hand go up, KKJ. We'll be taking questions at the end, okay? All right, cool. All right, so let's see. So while the device is losing power all the time, you're going to notice too that the battery power, the level that it is, affects the device's performance. So if you have 20% battery power, right, you're going to notice that the screen flickers. So it's kind of like your job to keep it, as close to 100% as possible. So when you're looking for, what are you going to do tonight, and you go to altvr.com and you look at the event schedule to see how you're going to spend your time in Altspace, with a little advanced planning, right? You'll notice, like, what's on the schedule here tonight. You've got Go Time coming up, and you've heard, really great things about the host. You've heard he's got amazing hair. He's got the shirt that you're starting to see everywhere, and you think, you want to go to it, right? So what you want to do is you want to plug your device in about an hour before the event starts. This way, you're at a full charge when you go into Altspace. And then, when you come into Altspace, you've got when you first put your headset on, right? That power button that you press to turn it on. If you press and hold, and don't do this now because if it disappears, I'm going to feel it. But if you press and hold that center button down for about 3 or 4 seconds, you're going to see these 3 buttons appear in the air in front of you. That middle button, that's a restart button. And when you push it, the device will restart. But it'll also get rid of any temporary files that the device, like, been downloading or anything else that's been engaged in. And it's a really great way. I like to think of it as clearing your mind. So you come in with 100% power, right? And you've just cleared your mind out. And then you head into Altspace. And when you get into Altspace, you may have noticed how important body language is in Altspace, right? Like you'll notice if somebody, like in an event like this, the moderator comes up to you and they start shaking their head like this. And, that means without them saying a word, that means don't do that thing, right? Or if I'm going to the edge of the stage and someone tries to get up and I'm going like this with my hand, that means get off the stage, right? But what can happen sometimes when you're on the go is sometimes your real world hand is not going to line up with your avatar's hand. So in the real world, my hand might be here, but in Altspace, my avatar's hand might be here. So when I go to wave my hand, get off the stage, right? What your guys are going to be seeing is my hand going like this above my head, right? And it's going to be like I'm saying, "Hey, everybody, welcome to Go Time." But that's not what I'm trying to say at all. So how do you fix this? Well, what you can do is you have this on your controller. You have your trackpad, then you have a button, and you have a button on the very bottom. All right, don't do this now because if you disappear, I'm going to feel it. But if you were to press that bottom button, you would get taken to the Oculus main menu, and you'd be given a choice to quit or resume. And think of this as an eject button. But this button does something else, and this you can try. If you look straight ahead and you press and hold that bottom button, right, while holding your arm out, what'll happen is you'll see a white circle spin in the air, and then your hand is going to snap into place. So just saw a couple people try it, right? Your hand will snap right into place like that, and then take a good look at your hand and ask yourself, is this where my hand is in the real world? Right? If it is, then you're good. If it's not, then try it again, until you find what's comfortable for you, and only you can determine what's comfortable for you. So give that a try if you find your hand doesn't match up where you think it should be. All right, now occasionally you're going to notice in Altspace that your menus move around. Your main menu wheel on the lower left there. Usually it's going to be the menu wheel, it's going to be your avatar, and then any space buttons you might have, like raise hand or world editor, or host tools or anything like that, right? And when these menus move, sometimes they can go behind you, they can be hard to reach. Or sometimes they could just feel a little bit off balance, right? And what you can do is if you always have to remember something, you always have the menu in your hand on the Oculus Go. All right. And what there this is on the trackpad, just below the trackpad is a button. If you look straight ahead and you press that button, your main menu is going to open. And if you press it again, your main menu is going to close. But when you open and close the menu like this, your menu wheel in the lower left is going to recenter, it's going to reorient, go back to where it's supposed to be. So if you find your menu moves around in a place that's not comfortable for you, just look straight ahead and press that menu button on your controller, just below the trackpad, one time, and then press it again to close it, and you'll find that your menu wheel goes back to where it's supposed to be. All right, now, when I started having those battery issues back when I first started out, one of the best pieces of advice I got was somebody told me if I turned down my brightness, my battery would last longer. I didn't want to do it because I wanted to have the best graphic experience I could possibly have in Altspace. And to me, that meant having my brightness turned way up, right? So but I kept running out of power, so I figured I'd give it a try. So every time I came into Altspace, I'd go into the Oculus, the main menu, right? I'd go over to the right side where it says settings, and I'd go to brightness there in the middle there, and there'd be this big blue bar. And every time I came into Altspace, I would turn it down a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until finally there was no blue left at all. My brightness was completely off, and I came into Altspace, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I went to this event space where there was this tree where I learned how to moderate. And I looked up at the tree, and it was the most realistic thing I'd ever seen in Altspace. I mean, I'd seen this thing 100 times before, but it never looked more real than it did in that moment. All right, so turning down the brightness, what it's going to do, turn it completely off, right, is you're going to have better graphics, you're going to have better performance, and most importantly, your battery is going to last, a good long while. It's going to last a lot longer. And then I started making it through events. But I found out, people actually hang out after events. I didn't know that, right? So I wanted it to last even longer. And then I started to notice that I was starting to get like that overheating problem. You guys have probably had that overheating problem by now, right? And so, we have a couple ways you can take to fix that. But first, one of the main reasons that users run into a lot of problems in Altspace is because, let's say you're a new, Oculus Go user, and you come into Campfire and you see in the corner there's a bunch of avatars talking. And they're all, they're talking, having a good time, and you're walking up, seeing what they're talking about, right? And all of a sudden they turn and they face you, and they come at you and they go, "Are you want to go? Are you want to go?" And that can be pretty off-putting when that happens. It doesn't feel too great. But what they're experiencing is pretty uncomfortable too. They're standing here talking to their friends, like, "Hey, what's up? How you been? Haven't seen you in a while. How you doing?" And all of a sudden they hear a voice, right? And their voice sounds very familiar, right? And they turn and they see your avatar with their voice coming out of it. Right. See, what happens is on the Oculus Go, the microphone is very sensitive. And as the sound comes out of the straps, it goes in through your microphone and it projects out of your avatar into Altspace. Now, here's the thing. We can't hear the sounds we make in Altspace, right? Like right now, I don't know what my voice sounds like in here, right? So what can happen is you're not aware that you're doing this, and you're actually projecting other people's voices out through your avatar. And now it's easy to manage this, actually. You're going to notice on the top of your headset on the left-hand side, you have two buttons. The leftmost button will lower the volume, right? And the button right next to that on the right will actually raise the volume up a little bit. And when that happens, you have these bars appear in the air in front of you. Some will be see-through, some will be, solid. And you're going to want 4 clear bars on the right-hand side, right? So basically you're 4 tick marks away from the maximum volume. Once you do this, the sound isn't going to be picked up by the microphone as easily, but it comes as a trade-off. You may occasionally have to strain to hear people in Altspace. And what you can do, I see you have a question there, Tanner. We will be taking questions at the end, so don't worry about it. Hang on to that, okay? So what happens is, if now the audio level is set, so it's not picking up sound as easily, right? But it comes at a trade-off. You're going to occasionally strain to have to hear people, right? But remember, you still have one hand in the real world, right? You can use it. Try this now. If everybody take your left hand, that's not on the controller, and put this up to your ear, right? And as I'm speaking, you're going to notice when you do that, cup your hand next to the ear, you're going to notice it gets louder, right? So this is a great way to temporarily increase somebody's volume. Now, one thing you can do that's really good is you can actually use headphones with your device. That'll make sure the only voice coming out of your avatar is your own. You could even use a pair of inexpensive earbuds. In my case, my wife went to the library to get an audiobook, and they gave her a pair of free earbuds. And she came home and she showed me, and then sadly they disappeared, right? They went missing. But good news, they reappeared a short time later, attached to my headset, and they remain there to this day. And so I hooked that up, and the only voice coming out of my avatar was my own from that point forward. Occasionally, you'd still hear my wife saying, "Hey, are you still on that thing?" And we fixed that too. We got her own headset, and she's now in Altspace with us. And it turns out she's a talented moderator and a very gifted world builder, and we're lucky to have her. All right, so now when I added the earbuds to my device, I started thinking to myself, hey, what else can I add on to it, right, to improve my experience? So I started experimenting with stuff because I wanted my battery to last longer, and I'd read that you're not supposed to use the device while it's plugged in, right? But they said an external battery pack is okay, so I figured I'd start there. And I found, now, before I talk about how I did this, this is what I call a Go Plus experience. And I call it this because when I would go to these heavy performance worlds, I'd notice other Go users would be crashing, all right, but I would be able to stay, all right. Sometimes it would get a little choppy, but I'd see, my fellow Go users, they'd disappear into the floor or they'd just disappear completely as they crashed. But I was able to stay there. And the reason was because I did the things I'm about to discuss. But before I do, I'm going to be talking about these products up here, and I just want to be sure you guys understand that these aren't the only products that work. It's the ideas behind these products that matter. But if you'd like to try any of these, you can go to altvr.com, because the temptation is going to be to write this stuff down. You don't need to. If you go to altvr.com, and at the very top of the page on the left-hand side, you're going to see the word events. Right next to that's going to be the word channels. And if you press on channels there, you're going to see all these Altspace channels come up. We're at the very bottom on page 2, or at the very end, Ravenhole events, like it says up on the booth there. And so when you press on that, you're going to see our event page, and on our event page, you're going to see a join Discord button on the bottom if you want to help us put on events like this. But you're going to see all these products on the left-hand side listed there. So if you want to try any of these out, fine. You'll also find the subscribe button, and it's a good idea if you press the subscribe button. That's Altspace, so you guys get like our content. Let them know that, you enjoy what we're doing here. And it makes us feel good whenever that number goes up. We enjoy that a lot. We don't get paid to do this, and that's a great way to say thank you. All right, so I started out with the Anker Power Core battery pack here. It's got 2 USB ports, right? And it's supposed to let me stay in VR for 15 hours. Now, I didn't think, or actually, I think it's 16. I don't think I'd ever spend that long in VR, right? And that's why I was glad it had 2 USB ports, because I was going to use it for other stuff too. And, and it looked like a, good device. And so I started using it, and I found out that, I started to overheat like all the time, right? And around this time also, I started to hear people having problems charging their Go. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you plug your cable into your headset to charge it, it's a little tight. And, and all the wear and tear on it, I think it loosens the connections, and eventually over time, it won't charge as effectively. I've heard a lot of people having this problem, and I want to get ahead of it before it happened. So I found the second product here. This is a MagSafe cable, right? And you put one of the tips into your headset, and the other end goes into the battery USB port. And then there's a magnetic connection that holds it in place. And this is a great safety feature, actually, because if you turn your head while you're in VR and the wire pops off, right, it just falls down, and you can just pick it up, right, hold it next to your headset. You don't even have to take your headset off. You just hold it up to your headset there, and it'll kind of thunk right into place. Make the sound, too, like that. And if your microphone's open, your friends will ask you, hey, what was that? And you'll be like, that's power. That's what that was. You don't have to say that. I just like saying that. Makes me feel like saying that. All right. So at this point in time, I started noticing I was overheating all the time. And so I had heard some people were using ice packs to actually cool down their headsets. And I didn't think that was a good idea because, condensation, water and electricity on your face, I don't think that's a great combination. And the person I know that was doing this, they actually went through 2 headsets. And so, I want to try another approach. And I found this USB mini fan right here. It's an AC Infinity mini fan. It's really small. It fits in the palm of your hand. And you want to make sure that this silver part is facing the faceplate. Now, the faceplate on the Oculus Go, it's installed by hand, right? So people experience a lot of different things with regard to the overheating. Some lucky few never overheat at all. Some people do it every half hour. I knew somebody that overheated every 2 minutes. The very first Go time we had, there was somebody that told a story during the questions and comments section, where somebody told a story where they had half of their headset had caved in from melting from the heat, right? This worried me. This worried me a lot. Right. So what I want to do is I want to find a permanent solution to the overheating. Right. So what I did was, there was an event in Altspace, the meditation event that I would moderate for. And, it's on this top of this hill, and it's got, all the sunlight streaming down through the fog. There's these bowls with smoke coming out of it. It's really impressive space. But every time I'm there, 20 minutes in the experience, I overheat without fail. It's always 20 minutes. Right. It's exactly 20 minutes. I've timed it. It's the strangest thing. Right. So, what I would do, right, is I figured this would be a great place to test this fan. And as luck would have it, I was set to moderate the meditation event when my fan arrived. So I had to figure out a way to attach it to the headset. Some people use string. I actually, my wife had these hair bands that suddenly went missing, and then they appeared on the headset, right on the straps there. And I crossed them over and I wrapped them around those round rubber feet on it. And so I went in, I went into Altspace, and if you've ever seen Star Trek, the Borg, I had all these wires coming down from my headset, kind of what it felt like. And I went into the meditation event with the fan on low. And I went up to the host, Jeremy, a really nice guy. I asked him, I said, can you hear my fan? And he says, no, not at all. And I said, oh, that's great. So I turned it up to medium. I said, can you hear that? And he says, a little bit, but it's not that bad. So then I turned it on high. And before I could even ask the question, he said, oh, I can definitely hear that. You sound like you're in a wind tunnel. I said, okay. So I switched it down to low, right? And spoiler alert, I never had to turn it up again. right? I went 20 minutes and I didn't overheat once, right? Then the event ended, didn't overheat at all. So I wanted to find out where the line was. So I went to another event, right? 2 events in a row, I didn't overheat. Then I went to another event, 3 events in a row, I didn't overheat. Then I went back to my home space, I hung out with my friends for a little while, and then for the first time, I left Altspace, right? Not because I was overheating, not because I ran out of power. I left because I actually wanted to, because I was tired. And that was the very first time that ever happened. And it wouldn't be the last. After that, I became super involved in the community. I started moderating all the time. I started hosting a lot, and my device became super reliable. All right, and yours can too. It's just a few small changes, and most of these are very inexpensive. You've got this AC Infinity fan; it's like $10 US. I think the magnetic cable is about $7 or $8 US. The most expensive thing is the battery. I think it's like $59 US, but it comes in different sizes and different capacities. All right, so let's see here. Now, that's being said, this solved a lot of issues, but there's still some problems on the go, and these are more annoyances than problems, and they're pretty easy to manage. The first one's a movement issue. Like, I'm standing at the campfire and I'm hanging out with my friends, and I go to turn the Stormy Bird here on my left, and instead of turning left, I go straight, and I think, well, that was weird, right? And I go to turn to the right to tell Hummingbird about it, but instead of turning right, I go straight again. And that was strange. So I, pull down on my controller, I touch down on the trackpad there, and instead of moving backwards, I move straight again. So I start smashing the buttons on my trackpad, trying to get something to happen, and I keep moving straight no matter what I do. And the next thing you know, I'm standing inside of an admin. Let me tell you something, there was nothing more frightening than standing inside of an admin. I saw the past, I saw the future, I saw things I can't even talk about. What I can talk about is how to manage this. Well, your touchpad is, it's sensitive to heat, moisture, and of course touch, because it's a touchpad, right? And you just basically need to reset the connection. The way you do this is you take your thumb, and without pressing down, you gently swipe your thumb from right to left, right? And then, or from left to right, the direction doesn't really matter. Just gently glide it to the other side, and then lift your thumb up into the air and cross over to the other side and come down again, and then swipe it again, right? You do this 2 or 3 times, you go swipe, 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 and then come down in the direction that you want to move, and that should clear it right up, all right? That definitely helps a lot. All right, now occasionally you're going to notice when you put your headset on, you're going to get a message that says can't find controller, right? Now, there's a lot of reasons this could be happening, but that you put a fresh battery in it last night, so it's not a power issue. If the battery runs out in your controller, of course, you're going to see a message like this. But if you have a fresh battery in your controller and all of a sudden you get this message, your headset and the controller aren't communicating anymore. Maybe the controller found out about your headset's secret life and isn't happy about it, right? And well, you don't even have to take your headset off to fix this. Just below the trackpad, you can notice there's these 2 buttons, all right? And you can remember this by what I call doubling down. And what I mean by this is if you press down those 2 buttons at one time for about 4 seconds, a white light's going to appear on the trackpad. But if you're wearing your headset, you're not going to see this. But what you will see is after about 4 seconds, when you lift your thumb back up, you're going to have your hand back, all right, which is great. So once you get your hand back like that, go into Altspace, and when you stand in the load screen, you're going to be like, man, I sure am glad I went to that go time. That Michael Forrest, he knew what he was talking about. He told me to double down, and I remembered it, and now I get to be on time for my event, right? So that works out. All right, now let's see here. Now, occasionally you're going to notice in Altspace, and this happens less and less because Altspace has really made a lot of changes to make Altspace more performant. And what happens is occasionally you're going to notice that your screen goes dark, right? And that's because everything you see here in this room, right? These curtains, this screen, all the avatars, every brick in this wall, right? The cars going by outside, all this stuff stays in your headset. So when you go back to the campfire after the event is over, what's going to happen is, you may not be thinking about go time anymore, but your headset still is. The poster for go time, that's in your headset right now, and it's staying there until you leave Altspace and reset your memory. All right. So what can happen is when the screen goes dark, if your microphone is still open, people will still be able to hear you, right? So you can just say, I can't see, I'll be right back. And then you press that bottom button on your controller, which is like that eject button, right? And then when you get the choice to quit or resume, you just press quit, and then you restart the app as normal and you come back in. Now, a great way to manage this is by getting ahead of it before it happens. You basically time your resets. So like at the end of this event, your friend might go, hey, what'd you think? And you're like, oh, that guy was awesome. Did you see his hair? It looked like he conditions with plastic resin. It's amazing, right? And then your friend goes, all right, calm down. What do you want to do now? And then you go, well, you want to go to the campfire? And your friend goes, yeah. And you say, all right, well, I'm going to catch up with you in just a minute. That's all you have to say, right? And then you hit that bottom button on your controller. You eject out of Altspace. You press quit, right? Then you restart the app. You come back into Altspace, and you look at your friends list there, and you hit go to, and you rejoin your friend. The whole process takes about less than a minute. Your friend's barely going to realize you've been gone. They're just going to think we're in the load screen the whole time. But now when you come into the campfire to meet your friend, you're going to notice that you're basically you're going to last longer. You're not going to get that dark screen as much. All right, I've gone a little bit over on time here, but I do have some tips for building worlds if anyone's interested in hearing that. Otherwise, I can skip over it. Does anybody want to hear the building world tips? Anybody? Okay, a few people. All right, cool. So we'll dig into it. All right, now I moderate for the Building Worlds event on Tuesdays, and a lot of times when I'm there, I hear other Go users saying that they can't build worlds. It's too difficult to build worlds on the Go, and it's simply not true. Right? What you're going to notice is that reason people get this impression is because when you go into the world editor, and again, you have to, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go into your menu and you go to your settings and you go to general, you have to have enable worlds beta turned on for this to work. All right. But if you've gone on, if you're in the world building beta program and you go to edit a world and you go to move an object, you may notice that object is moving around really crazy like this. And it may take you a while to realize that it's actually your head that's controlling the object. I don't know about you guys, but it's really difficult to keep a level head in any reality, let alone a virtual one. So what you can do is in the world editor, you're going to notice that there's a checkbox on the bottom that says lock rotation. And when you press lock rotation, now what you can do is if you squeeze and release the trigger one time on the object, you'll be able to control the rotation. And when you get the rotation where you want it, you just squeeze and release that trigger again, and it'll lock it into place. Now, if you squeeze and hold the trigger and don't let go, you'll be able to move the object up, down, left, and right, just like that. Also, you can, while holding the trigger, you can actually carry the object and put it somewhere by hand. So let's say, for example, I want to move this laser pointer here, and I was going to move it to, let's see, right here on the edge of the stage, just down right here, like that. Okay? Now, what can happen here is while we have placed it, that's not really very realistic. If this was the real world, it would be on the floor right now, right? So what we can do is you open up the world editor, because on Oculus Go, you don't have to get it exactly where you want it. You just have to get it close enough. So this is about where I want it, right? Now, if I just started building in this world and I don't know what direction is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the world editor and I'm going to go look on the item list. And on the item list, I'm going to see, laser pointer there, and there's going to be a cogwheel next to it. So I press on that cogwheel and a panel is going to open. And on this panel is going to be numbers for rotation. There's going to be numbers for position. There's going to be numbers for the scale and the size. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change these numbers a little bit at a time and watch what happens. So let's say right now that the X value of the laser pointer is at 20. And what happens if we turn it to, let's say we change it to 19 and it jumps over here like that. So now I know any item that I move in the space, when I lower the value on X, it's going to move it in this direction, right? It's going to go toward this way, right? And now this is going to make building faster and a lot easier, right? Because, if I lower that number, it's going to move in that direction. That must mean if I increase that number, it's going to move in that direction, right? So basically, you can learn these things basically by playing with those numbers. And I know that keyboard they give us to type on, right? It can take a while to peck things out, but it's a lot like playing a video game. When you first start playing a video game, all you're thinking about is the controls, right? And but after about a few days to a week, you're no longer thinking about the controls anymore. Everything becomes a reflex. All you're thinking about is saving the world or crushing your enemies. That's a great way to spend a Wednesday, right? So that's basically it. The more you do it, the easier it'll get. There is a lot of very talented world builders on the go. As a matter of fact, when this event is over, I usually take everybody flying. So if you don't know how to fly, you can come with us. But if you do know how to fly, you should still come and check it out, because the event space that we go to fly in was actually built in less than 2 days on an Oculus Go. There's also a portal there to a place called Lake Ravenhall. That took a lot longer than 2 days because that world is super detailed, it's very large, but it was also built on an Oculus Go. There's a lot of very talented world builders that use Oculus Go's to build worlds in Altspace. All right, and you can be one of them. All right, so just remember that lock rotation. That helps. All right, we'll be taking your questions, your comments. If you tried any accessories that you'd like to talk about, or if you have any questions, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a raise hand button appear on your lower right as if by magic. There it is. Now, if you have any questions, just press that raise hand button. I see Chloe has a question. I'm going to start off with you. Chloe, you're on the air. I feel like a radio.
Hello.
Where are you, Chloe? Hey, Chloe.
This
What's
isn't
up?
really a question, but Oculus is good, yes. But there's one thing that I hate about Oculus is it dies really quickly. Right now I have 0%, but I'm still running.
Have you turned down your brightness?
I don't know, but still.
All right. When you get out of Altspace and after your free charge, I want you to do me a favor. When you turn on your device, I want you to go on the right side of the main menu to where it's the setting. Not in Altspace, on the Oculus main menu. go where it says settings and look for something called brightness. You're going to see a big blue bar there, right? Don't set it to auto, manually set it so you turn the brightness completely off. The graphics are incredible that way, right? It may take you a little while to get used to it if you're coming from high brightness, but I promise you your battery will last longer if you do that. Okay?
Thank
Let's see if
you.
we have any, no problem. Let me see if we have any other questions here. We have, let's see, Quincy. Quincy has a question. Where are you, Quincy? Quincy. There.
What
Right here. Hold on.
Oculus do you use?
What now? What Oculus do I use?
Yeah.
I started out on Oculus Go. I used the Go for about 10 months, I want to say. And then about 2 months ago, I got an Oculus Quest. And I've been using that since. But, still keep my Go close by because, like I said, I love the device. Anybody else? Let's see. We have, let's see, who else do we have? We have somebody named Duchess. Duchess is off the list for some reason. They just disappeared. Duchess, if you press the hand again, I'll get back to you. In the meantime, we have Bruh. It's B-R-U-H, Bruh. Where are you?
Yeah.
What's going on,
Okay.
Bruh?
How do you fly?
How do you fly? That's a great question. Actually, I'm going to be taking everybody flying right now, if you like. So if everybody follows me out of here, but before we get going, if you've learned anything here today, please share it with the people that you come in contact with. So if you're in a campfire and somebody says they're on an Oculus Go and they're overheating all the time, tell them about Go Time, tell them about our event page, tell them about the fan, tell them how to solve these issues. Because if we're sharing that information, that's kind of how we keep this Altspace thing going, right?
Oh, also, I have one more question.
Okay,
could I
well,
ask?
what's your question? We'll be taking
So,
questions there too if you. But what's the question?
yeah. So when you don't have headphones or earbuds equipped, can you still hear like your voice through my headset?
Right now, I
Or-
can't. If you have your volume down 4 tick marks, about 4 tick marks away from the maximum, it's not going to happen as easily. But if somebody's like shouting in all space, you'll hear a little bit of an echo sometime. But the sound's a lot more cleaned up if your volume down. But the headphones are really good too. All right, everybody. If you have any more questions, we'll be taking them at the Flight Academy. So feel free to approach me there while we're teaching everybody to fly. What we're going to do is we're going to walk out this back door here into that blue load screen light, and you'll go into the load screen. You'll come out at the Flight Academy. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'll see you next time.